Hey, welcome back to Gaming and the Gospel. I'm Dave Wright, and I have my friend David Calvert with me here.
Hello.
We've been going through the book Gaming and the Gospel, and we're on chapter 3 today, called The Edge. This chapter talks about a lot about my love for Quake 2.
Not the U2 guitarist.
True. You found an Easter egg. Good job. Well, The Edge is a reference to a deathmatch map that was included in Quake 2, which was my favorite deathmatch map, Q2dm1. Okay. And it's very popular. Just a lot of memories connected to my time in college, quaking with guys in Snodgrass quad. Just a lot of memories of fragging late into the night. And
did you have a LAN set up in the dorm, or did you have to hodgepodge it? Like, what'd you do?
Yeah, so Snodgrass was connected for a network called Token Ring, which was a awful first generation Ethernet.
Okay.
Which if one connection was broken in the ring of the network, the whole thing would go down. So if it wasn't plugged in all the way. But so to get around that, because it was so unreliable, we made our own LAN, and we ran Ethernet cables everywhere, up to the second story, which because I was above B quad. In D quad, which was immediately above it, and we ran it out the window, and
That's
I was
awesome.
plugged in, and we had this little LAN that we'd be not uncommon to be 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Quake sessions going on.
How many players usually?
It would vary from 2 to 8.
Okay.
And a lot of happy memories with that. And going forward, just like really missing that community and those connections.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that you were playing with other dudes. So we talked last episode a lot about XCOM, which is single player largely, right? Like you're focused on your gameplay. Yeah. And then I talked a little bit about Dark Forces, which took so much time away from my life, but gave back to it in the fact that it was a beautiful narrative that's now been retconned. But it was super fun to play that Star Wars universe game. But then here Quake is not. I mean, there was a campaign, I think, but like it wasn't about that. Like you're playing deathmatch with other people. There's that community element, and you're playing with other dudes, and you're running cables out of windows in order to hang out.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and that was we was talking about passing time versus killing time last episode, and that was a pastime for us for a majority of it, but then it would very slippery slope into distraction.
At 3 a.m., you should be sleeping,
but
you might be killing
studying,
time.
And just like we really got into procrastination. That's really what it was, let's be honest. But just a lot of good connections there. And this is an old game. This game came out in 1997. But I think Quake is still relevant because you wouldn't have the Unreal Engine. You wouldn't have Fortnite. You wouldn't have Call of Duty if it wasn't for these nerdy guys at id Software, making Wolfenstein and Doom and Quake and Quake 2, which Quake 2 really kind of revolutionized the first person gaming because everybody cloned that. It was a Quake 2 engine for the longest time.
Yep.
So Dave, what was your Quake in college?
It was, I remember playing Quake on my PC before I couldn't keep up anymore. And then when I jumped to console, it was Halo. We had Xboxes in our hall in college, and we did have a LAN pretty quickly once that was available for universities. And so there were so many nights that we would play Halo 1, Halo 2, and then Halo 3 while I was there for grad school. And so we were plugging into the wall and then opening our doors so that we could hear each other screaming up and down the hallway and even up and down floors.
That's great.
And so many times that we would max out, the full 16 and do big team battle stuff where there's 16 guys are randomly in the dorm all playing together and in order to kill each other. But while we're playing, we're, like I said, we're hollering at each other. We're laughing. Before YouTube was a space to watch other people play games, I had dudes who would come sit on my couch and just watch us play.
Yep.
So I know that there's some reality there that like this is a thing that people do. I still don't get it, but yeah, guys would come and just watch the foolishness and laugh at us while we're laughing at each other, and killing each other and screaming at each other. But it was always about each other, right? Like we wanted to hang out together. Like we weren't playing a single player game all networked together. We were playing a multiplayer game. We wanted to be laughing at each other and engaged in community.
And to do that, you had to have multiple Xboxes, right?
Right.
How many did you chain up at one time?
Well, we usually would have, 15 to 16 max. We did do, split screen when it was available. On Halo 3, you can only have 2 per screen. And so I'm pretty sure. And so that was annoying because then we had to have more Xboxes available. But generally, we would have 1 per person just so that you could have full real estate on the screen. Because it's really annoying to snipe when you're split into 4 and then you're screen cheating and all that stuff. Like, and my kids get so mad at me. They're like, "You're screen cheating, Dad," when we're playing multiplayer. And I'm like, I can't not see what you're doing. Like, especially Halo level design, there's all these specific colors for specific environments so that you can easily call out to your teammates like, they're in the blue area or whatever. It's a visual cue. And so if the screen turns blue, but I'm not in that area, I can't not know that's where you are. So I've tried to explain, I'm not cheating. I'm just dominating you. It's fine. But yeah, I spent so much time playing Halo and in order to be connected or feel connected with other people. I actually met my wife through Halo, but not online. She was a student while I was finishing up at Campbell, and when we were talking about going back to the dorm to play networked, she was like, "I can play Halo," because she overheard me talking to some of the guys, and I'm like, "Okay, whatever." And so she's like, "No, I want to come," and I'm like, "Okay."
Was that the moment?
No, that was not the moment. I was like, "This is going to be funny." And so she and her roommate came over to my apartment, which was in the bottom of the dorm. I was the RD and the resident director. And so she got on in my apartment and was like destroying guys with a shotgun and stickies. And I'm like, what is happening? And I realized, I'm attracted to this girl. Because we had just come from like practice for the music team. So she could sing and she could beast people in Halo. And so I had to admit, like, I'm attracted to this girl. And so Halo nights, quote unquote, became like excuses for her to come over and hang out with us.
Oh, I see.
And a chance for me to get to know her better. And so Halo played a really important role in my marriage for good or for ill. And so like, this longing for connection, this desire to fill the space with love, like is part of why we do these things, why we do, especially multiplayer gaming. And so the theme of this chapter, though, is what?
Yeah, this we start unpacking the analogy of the void, this space within our souls of the separation from God, and how we will we'll look out into that void, and it scares us. We don't want to approach it, and so we think to ourselves, well, maybe I can throw stuff in it. Maybe I can fill the gap between myself and God. And then I can walk across this bridge of stuff, get across. And I would throw in Quake 2. I would throw in all sorts of other games into it. I would throw coffee, just like all these things that I think would make me happy or make the pain stop. And ultimately, these things are little idols, essentially.
Yeah.
And that desire for connection isn't a bad thing at all. It's just really deep down in my soul is I want to be reconnected with God.
Yeah.
I want to be in heaven, reconnected in full fellowship with Him. And because of that desire, just like I would throw that into the void of just wanting this connection with someone, you know, and just like trying to find that connection. And so in like the edge, this thing about this, like, because it has like a cliff thing, it just made me think about like that distance, and that pit in front of me. And
well, I'm leading music this coming Sunday at my church, and one of the songs we're doing is got the line, "How great the chasm that stands between us, how high the mountain I could not climb." Right? There's this idea of a gap between us and God that exists in theology. In Scripture, we even get some of these ideas. And so I really love this metaphor that you developed for the book because it's not the same as some of the other ones we've been familiar with. Like there's also the great Point of Grace song, "There's a cross to bridge the great divide." And so like that's the thing we'd think about. Like the cross bridges the gap between us and God. Like what Jesus has done creates a bridge. Yes. But I think your picture of the void is like, pun intended, filling in the gaps of that metaphor. And then we're familiar with the idea of, a God-shaped hole. Yeah. And then Augustine says, our hearts are restless until we find our rest in God. So like there's these ideas that you're building on to make this metaphor of the void. So we're not just talking about a God-shaped hole, we're talking about a huge gap. Yeah. And we're not just talking about the next step of the gospel is like realizing what Jesus has done. The first step of the gospel is realizing that we're broken and that we need someone to make a bridge. Yeah. And so this void idea helps us get at the first step of the gospel. Like we will worship things. We will try to satisfy ourselves. And yes, there's important good things in gaming, right? Like especially this community element of it that we talk about in the chapter and we've talked about here. Like I met my wife, but all these things are good. And, but when a good thing becomes an ultimate thing, it's not a good thing anymore. And so we've thrown it into the void to try to fill the space, to try to get us reconnected with God in some way, because our hearts long for being known and knowing fully. And we're not going to get that apart from our relationship with our Creator.
Yeah, we throw YouTube videos, achievements, Netflix episodes. It's like anything can go in there. Just like money, lust, just like, and I mentioned the coffee thing. Just like in my mind, like I'm connecting that to like, I can go to Starbucks and maybe I'll run into somebody that I know.
Yeah.
You know, just like there'll be some connection, some social affirmation. And I just throw that in one after another and I never hear them hit the bottom.
Yeah. Another reason I love this metaphor is because it resonates so much with our cultural assumptions that we have here in America, in the West, in this time, the 21st century. Like we're constant consumers. Yep. We are marketed to, and we are the product. And when you think about cookies and all of our data being online, like we are constantly consuming things. We're constantly watching reels and TikTok videos and trying to fill something. And in this case, you've used this metaphor. We're trying to fill the void. Like we're trying to feel something that's not just the brokenness of sin. Yeah. And if we're not careful, we'll keep dumping things in and we're never going to hear it hit the bottom. And instead, that's the next step of the gospel is the good news of who Jesus is, what he does to solve this, to fix this, to point us in a better direction. Yeah.
Some we were talking about on the car ride over made me think about the consumerism and just like how this analogy really fits for now because of how vast the void is and how big we think consumerism is. Just like all the things, because it feels, I can't even quantify like all the consuming things that we go through during a day, all the ads we see, all the things like do this, do that, do this, be this, Yeah. It's just, it feels like it takes a void to fill that up. So just like we think, oh, okay, well, I have enough stuff, right? I have all these things I can do, so I'm just going to throw them.
Yep. So at the end of each chapter, we are grateful to have these questions. I say that a little sarcastically because, Dave, you wrote these questions that are really hard to answer.
Yes.
And I can't imagine what it was like for you just to write it and to have to answer it yourself.
I'll be honest. I hated these questions.
But for this podcast, we made the promise that we would answer all these questions and that we would kind of demonstrate for you, the reader, what it feels like to answer them. And so keeping track of your score or shooting for a high score, you can tabulate your subtotals and keep track of it through the course of reading the book. And then at the end, see how you score in order to know yourself, to reflect on what God might be calling you to. And so it's not to make you feel bad. necessarily. Again, like that's the first step of the gospel is recognize your sin, not so that you'll hate yourself, but so that you'll be honest with yourself and recognize how beautiful Jesus is. And so we want to get at that too in these questions, not so that you'll get mad or feel terrible, but so that you'll realize that there is hope in the gospel.
Amen.
So this first question though is, how happy do you feel usually?
Yeah, this was just a general question of like just trying to think where you're at emotionally right now.
Yeah.
It's like on any given day you get up, you get out of bed, it's like, how happy are you? It's like, is your joy in the Lord, or is it weighed down with all the things that you got to get done today? All the pressures of leadership or the church, those like for us in particular, just like thinking about those things, it's like, that make us happy, or is our joy sourced in the Lord? So it's a way of trying to, as I mentioned before, like this is a way of journaling where you're at right now.
Yeah, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just so that you can think about it. Maybe you've not even thought about this before, but a 10, a high score is I feel happy. 1 is I'm not. And that's not a bad thing. There's no judgment in the scoring.
That's where you're at.
Yeah. We just want you to be honest. So for me, again, I recognize like similar to the last chapter, in chapter 2, we had a couple questions that are related to maybe some physiological things that might be going on. Distraction and ADHD go hand in hand. So with this, how happy do you feel? For some of us, it might be we've never really paid attention to our emotions. Yeah. And so maybe you need help learning how to do that. Or it could be that you are depressed or feeling anxiety. And some of those things can be physiological. They can be chemical. They can be spiritual. There could be attack that you are wrestling with. And so there's a lot of factors that go into answering this question. How happy do you feel? And we recognize that too. And again, this question is to help you think about all those things if you haven't thought about it before. So for me, how happy do you feel usually? I have to go with a 4. Because of the season of life that I'm in, because of particular circumstances. Again, we talked about this last chapter too, the way circumstances can affect our answers, which is why we recommend going through this book a couple times, not just the once, but revisit it after a few months or years even. How happy do you feel usually? I've got to say 4, because of a lot of sad things that are going on in the world and in my life. Yeah. And so it's helpful for me to be mindful of that, because of the way it can impact the way I answer other questions too. Yeah. How would you answer, Dave?
Kind of.
Okay.
Can't decide between 6 or 5.
Okay.
And where we're at right now with the book and the release and everything, book sales have not been what I thought they would be, and just like YouTube views have not been what they, and it's like, I've had to check myself of just like, cool.
Are you throwing that in the void too?
Yeah. Just like, cool. I'm throwing the book in the void. I'm throwing YouTube into the void. Just like anything can become this thing that you're like trying to throw into the void, and just like, and it's still helpful for me to identify that and confess that to God and be like,
yep,
God, I'm sorry, I'm doing it again.
Yep.
I'm making this thing the thing, I'm making this thing a little idol, and I'm sorry I did that. And that's a gospel, is just like you mess up and you keep moving, just like, because God's that good.
Yep.
So
how often do you turn to a game or any other kind of media when you feel sad? This is a fun question, fun in quotation marks, in the sense that it connects with the previous chapter too. Like when we were thinking about passing time and killing time. Yeah. How often do you turn to a game or any other kind of media when you feel sad? Yeah. 10 being not often, 1 being every time. So how would you score that?
Yeah, just to connect the dots a little bit from the chapter, I kind of lament that community of the guys with Quake, and doing stuff, and I would feel sad, and I would start throwing things into the void because I felt sad, because I just like, I miss my bros, Yeah, but we grow up, things change, and just like that's just part of life. And but I know a lot of times with media, man, just watching a show, for me, that's a quick release of just like, I'm just going to turn something on and not think.
Yeah.
Try not to feel, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
So, Yeah. Yeah, definitely sometimes.
Yeah, I think when I hop on a multiplayer game like Halo, then it's usually because I'm angry or frustrated, and I can process that by blowing things up. I think sadness may be an impetus sometimes for me when I hop on a single player narrative, because I can, again, like get lost in that narrative and not have to think about my situation. But it's not as often as it used to be. So I would probably say an 8 for me for sadness specifically, being when I game or consume some sort of media. Where would you drop yours? 6? You said sometimes.
Yeah, I'm at 6 again, I think.
Okay. The third question for this chapter is, how often do you consider the health of your relationship with God? Again, like, this seems like a simple question, but how often do we really ask ourselves this, right?
So how am I doing with God?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's super easy to ask someone else.
Yes. I can ask you, Dave, but I just committed to answering this myself too for all the listeners. So how often do I consider the health of my relationship with God? 10 being often, 1 being not often. I think, again, I have the benefit of serving at a church, so I'm around people who will hold me accountable all the time. And so, and having kids who I'm ostensibly discipling, right?
Yeah.
Like, I am thinking about this a bit more often than I might have when I was single or when I was just married without kids. So probably, again, 7 or 8 for me. It is something on my mind pretty regularly, because I am supposed to be demonstrating that for my family and for my church. Often do you consider your relationship with God and the health of it?
Yeah, I'm at an 8.
Cool.
I'm pretty sure.
Because you're a husband, so you're interacting with your wife.
Yeah, just like I'm with a lot of church stuff for us going on.
Yeah.
Eldership questions, and just like, so I'm been really thinking about that, and just like, cool, am I living up to these standards? That's in the Bible, and that very much corresponds to a relationship with God. I've been praying more, just trying to develop some prayer house times for myself in the basement, and just trying to think of the phrase that my friend Matt Shirley would use, monastic kind of mindset of just like making things not ritualistic, but like
habits,
more special, more important. It's like burning a candle for 15 minutes and just like praying for that 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Just like some sort of, what's the word I'm looking for?
It's a discipline. That's a liturgical act.
Yeah.
So we're recording this during the season of Lent. So I gave up sugar, like added sugar, processed sugar for Lent.
I confirmed this. He got a latte
without any flavor. Yeah. And it's weird. I have a really, really bad sweet tooth and snack all the time as a way of coping, I think. And so
sure, that goes in the void.
Like even like learning how to shop for things that don't have sugar in them has been so annoying.
Oh gosh.
But it forces me to remember why I'm doing what I'm doing. So like all of these daily, multiple times a day reminders, that's the purpose of the Lenten fast, right? It's like I'm remembering, oh man, I haven't given up anything compared to what Jesus gave up for me. Like it helps me remember, and thus helps me think about my relationship with God.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful for little things like that kind of are liturgical moments built into the year or the day, as it were.
Yep.
So, but we've said the void so many times. The next question is, how often do you throw things into the void?
Jeez.
10 is rarely, 1 is all the time, 5, 6 being sometimes. And this is a self-awareness question, right? Like similar to how is your relationship with God? Jeez. You got to think about it and answer it. How often do you throw things into the void? A lot of this is going to be subconscious, right? Like we've done this for so long because we're old. And even if you're young, you've probably done this a lot without thinking about it.
Yeah. Some for me, most recently, just like laying in bed, I'm like, I'm going to check YouTube and see what the views are. Like, and I think to myself, there it went.
Yep.
There it went again.
For me, it's probably, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's got to be a 6, because it's sometimes, It's not all the time, I don't think, but I need to think about it some more maybe. But it's definitely not, I'm not conscious of it being rarely. So it's got to be more often than rarely. So it's sometimes that I am, whether it be a gaming thing, an escape thing. Yeah, because anytime we're escaping, anytime we're pursuing distraction, anytime we're killing time, all of those things are going into the void. And so, the media I've consumed at random times, that's totally been something that's thrown into the void.
Yeah. I feel I'm at a 4.
Okay.
It's this. We read in the Bible about idols, and we always think of them as big as a calf. A big golden calf. They're that big. No, guys, right. They're tiny. They are tiny little things that carry so much weight.
Because you're thinking about it all the time. Yeah. You're looking for it. You're giving your affection to it.
Yeah, it's like a snowflake that is like weighs as much as a rock.
Yeah,
and just like you just pile those things up.
Anyways. It's the size of something that fits in your pocket, and buzzes and beeps. And gives you all the dopamine from different.
Oh man,
there's a lot of things.
Someone just reposted. Oh, good.
Yeah,
yeah.
There's a lot of things that we throw into the void without thinking about it.
Yep.
So let's use these questions to help us think about it. The next question is: how likely are you to communicate what you're feeling to God?
Yeah.
I just AKA prayer.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I feel I do this maybe too much.
How's that possible? We're supposed to pray without ceasing.
I feel like
I can't do it too much.
I'm complaining too much to God
about
what I'm feeling.
Well, that's what the psalmist demonstrates for us, right? Like you read the Psalms, it's not all praise the Lord, praise the Lord. It's also what's happening. Why have you left me alone? Like there's lots of complaint and lament. So you can't do it too much. That's not a thing.
I appreciate that rebuke. But I put it out there for some people that don't really think about their emotions internally or their feelings, just like as a way to be like, oh, I've actually never thought about that.
Right.
But for someone like me, like I do think about that often.
Yeah. I think the Lord's Prayer may initially strike us as being a prayer that is all about like facts, but I think there is some emotional undercurrent in what Jesus wants us to pray.
Yeah.
Right? Like the desire for daily bread, to be forgiven. Those are emotional things.
Yeah.
Those are not just logical. Yeah, please forgive us as we forgive other people. Like forgiving another person requires an emotional awareness that there is something to be forgiven. Like there's context for those things. And so, the Lord's Prayer is not just full of facts and theology that we need to pray, but rather emotional content too.
And maybe you're listening to this and you relate to what I just said about sharing those emotions too much. I think in the Lord's Prayer, there's a great format for us of like acknowledging God. Mm-hmm. Instead of just going straight for the thing, just like submitting and just like, God, you are above all things, just like, you got me here. Thank you for this. Here's what's going on. Forgive me my sins. I submit to whatever you do. That format is in that prayer, and that was some intentional Jesus was trying to communicate to us.
Yeah. So I think, how likely are you to communicate what you're feeling to God? Probably an 8 for me. But again, I'm old. I've walked with Jesus for quite a few years now, and so I've had practice. I've had time to develop this as a discipline. Because I've felt convicted about praying without ceasing for a long time. Because I don't know what the heck Paul meant by that. That's really stressful. Like, because I want to perform, I want to do the right thing. So here's Paul saying, pray without ceasing. Like, oh, I got to figure out how to do this. But it's less about like starting every thought with "Dear God," but rather like recognizing that God is with me. The Holy Spirit indwells me because I profess that Jesus is Lord. Like I am in communication with God all the time. So He already knows all my thoughts. So as I shape my thoughts. That's what it is to take our thoughts captive, right?
Yep.
Like as I shape my thoughts, I can communicate my feelings to God. Like when I'm mad, I can feel my anger and not sin, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's okay to be angry, as it were, but don't sin in your anger. If I'm feeling sad, I have plenty of example in Scripture of expressing sadness to God. I have language for those things. So as I've gotten older, I have developed that ability to kind of tweak my thoughts, not just be in my own head talking to myself, but realizing that God is with me. That thought becomes prayer in that way.
Kind of talking about emotions. Some I often think about and encourage people, like, it's okay to wrestle God sometimes.
Yep.
Try to take him to the mat and be like, I'm upset about this thing. Just like, I'm hurt by this. Or even like you feel like God has hurt you in some ways.
Yep.
That's a very real thing. And being open and honest with him about that, but also having the mindset of like, you're going to lose. You're going to lose that fight. But it's okay to get those emotions out. He can take it.
Yep.
He's big enough to take those punches. And when I say those things, it's like, that is a short period of time too. That isn't something to be drawn out for a long time. That can be an afternoon, of just like talking with God and being angry about it. And then trying to, at the end, be like, okay, no, you're still God. You're still good. I still remember the truths.
Yep.
You're right.
Yeah.
You always were right. Thanks for wrestling with me, Dad.
Yeah. No, that's a whole nother tangent we go on.
Yeah.
But so in each chapter, we also have room to install a mod, which is optional. Crafting a custom question. So you have a custom question that you thought of for this chapter? I mean, you thought of all the questions, but like, do you have a custom one that you thought of?
I put these custom questions in because I knew I couldn't think of them all. I knew that other people, so that's, just an open door for you guys as you read this. It's like, hey man, you should have asked this question. There's your chance. So, with the power of editing, we will find a question to ask.
Yeah, well, I thought about a couple. I just wanted to throw that out there to see if you had one floating in your mind. In particular, and it's answered in some of the other thing, and we ask it in other ways too. We talked about this earlier. Like, I thought, what if we asked the question, if we wanted to prioritize community over being alone, we could let that be a custom question in this space. Like, how often do you use gaming as a relational tool? And letting 10 be like, I'm always using it relationally, and 1 being not. But then we thought about, well, that's not really fair to the art of a single player game or to the narrative that is there, because that can be just as beautiful to engage with and appreciate the way the single player game is made. So you shot my custom question down, you broke my mod. So I hadn't had one that I've really thought about since. But yeah, we can drop this in as we think about it. And yeah, this just leaves room for you to think about a custom question related to this chapter on the void.
Yeah.
And standing on the edge, looking out into it. What's a question that will help you think about yourself and the gospel and the way we engage with gaming? After that, you can add your score from this section and the previous section, see what your subtotal is. The secret bonus, though, is super fun. Have you been reading all the footnotes? And if you answer yes, you have to turn to page 191. It's like a choose your own adventure. If you answer no, you get no bonus. And so I love this because I love footnotes, period. Like any book that I'm reading, I would much prefer footnotes. Endnotes drive me nuts because then I got to put my finger in the back of the book and flip back and forth because like footnotes are supposed to be fun, I think, or helpful to the conversation. So that's why they're there.
Have you read The Princess Bride?
No, I've only watched the movie.
Oh my goodness. That is why I did this, because
he footnotes in that?
It is hilarious. There's a story in the footnotes.
Okay.
That's like half of the page will be the footnote.
Which in an academic book is like my favorite. But I didn't realize that. Like in the book version.
He would break like history of the country and stuff, and the next page would be the footnote. You bring it up to half the page, and
oh man, that's awesome.
So yeah, that's where my mind. So I was as a little homage to The Princess Bride, the book version. So.
Okay, so I guess the fact that there are footnotes is an Easter egg as well, right?
Yep. You found another one.
So again, if you're listening, you also heard us challenge you early on. If you can add up every Easter egg in the book, you will receive a prize to be determined.
Prize to be determined. That's the best kind of prize.
So, yeah, if you can add up every Easter egg and let us know, that would be awesome. And
Dave at Gaming in the Gospel.
Yeah, we will reward you appropriately. And so at the end of each section, we then get the fact that the area has been cleared. What's that from? That's got to be an Easter egg to a particular thing.
I mean, I think that's just early gaming. That's
like even
number of
Mario doesn't use
Nintendo
area cleared, does it?
Actually, I'm having to go through my mind palace right now. I think it's Contra.
Okay.
Internet, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Anything else you want to throw into the void before we...
Dave, have I told you about Quakerama?
Quakerama. I don't think so. If you have, I've forgotten.
I did a Quake tournament at my college.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have like more than just your crew play?
Yeah. We had like 32 people.
Oh man.
Yeah. Double elimination, had brackets.
Did you set up in a different space or did you use the quads?
And somehow this thing went to the Student Life Center. So it was on full display for all. It even got in the yearbook.
Dude. Did you have like snacks and stuff too? Like, the whole party?
Yeah, it was a whole party. It was week long. This tournament that went week long.
Teams of 4 or what?
No, it was, we did multiple things. We did one-on-one.
Okay.
There was team versions of it. We even did, we included Counter-Strike into it at one point. There was Quake 3 at one point, captured a flag. It's like we did many iterations of it. There was like 6 of them, I think.
Okay.
We just like did those like once a semester.
Man.
So, yeah. That was a fun time.
That's awesome.
Then with a big LAN party at the end of it that went all night. So
yeah, we got humbled. We being me and the guys in my dorm. We thought we were the only people on campus playing Halo.
Oh yeah.
And so, but by the time Halo 3 had come out, it was that's like peak Halo saturation. Like everybody who had an Xbox at that point had played Halo and was on Xbox Live. Yeah. And we realized, there are other people on campus that play this. So we hosted a Halo tournament in the business building where they had a giant projector screen. Yes. And we found out that there were some dudes on the track team who lived in a totally different dorm. Mm-hmm. They were on a different planet. And they just ran and studied and ate and played Halo. Like that was it. These dudes were MLG level gamers and we had no idea. And so we're thinking we're the Halo dorm. We were known as such. Like people from other dorms would come over and hop on in somebody's room to get on the LAN party.
Did they take your lunch?
They destroyed us. It was like humiliating, not just humbling, like humiliating because we were so cocky about how good our teams were going to be. We had like 2 or 3 teams total of 4 and we jump in and we made our way through the tournament. But then the championship, like we had not played them until the championship. But the championship 4v4 was against 4 of the track dudes and the top 4 of us from our dorm. And it was embarrassing. And it was, one guy was on the soccer team and the other 3 were track dudes. And they just totally dominated us. And I learned things. Like I thought I knew all the tricks, but I learned things from these guys about camping the weapon spawns and hogging the overshield, like stuff that I should have known and should have been developing. And this isn't the beginning before you could hop on and watch other major league players, doing this for a living. Like these guys were good enough where they probably didn't need the scholarships. They could have played games and paid for their college.
But, do you know what Counter-Strike is?
Yes, I do know what Counter-Strike is.
Because we were the Quaker guys and
Quakers.
I know, right? And a bunch of Counter-Strike guys and you guys can't beat us in Counter-Strike, and it's just like we did, and we played and we wiped the floor with them.
Really?
Because our tactics are entirely different. Because in Quake it's run and gun.
Right.
With them it's more tactical, but they couldn't handle us jumping and hopping around them and just running circles around them and killing them. It was
interesting.
It was
because the maps are way different too. Like Counter-Strike is all hallway and building related, and Quake is outdoor, with a mixture of some hallway stuff.
But just like we were running and gunning, we weren't stopping at the door. We were just running through the map. Yeah, it was.
That's interesting.
It was a interesting time.
Yeah, with one of the other games that, like, you know, you mentioned this earlier on that you know, Call of Duty exists because Quake exists, right?
Yeah.
So like Call of Duty is very much a run and gun game,
Yeah.
but then there are so many players like me who get frustrated by that. And prefer, you know, the Battlefield space or Halo or some other first person shooter that has a different pace to it.
Yep.
And yeah, you mix those two groups of guys or girls together, you're going to get really weird gaming interactions.
Yeah, they just couldn't handle it.
Like I haven't hopped onto Fortnite because I'm not a third person guy and it drives me nuts. But they're about to add first person, I think, to Fortnite.
Yep.
Oh man. And I feel like I need to give that a shot, but I don't want to get killed by my children. And so, or by children in general. So I don't want to necessarily do that. But that's interesting when we think about all the ways that these games can overlap and all the kinds of connection that is there.
Sounds like we need to get Mr. David Nash in here.
Indeed.
And he can break it down for us.
Mr.
Lead designer at Epic Games, who works on a lot of the campaign or the, what did they call it in Fortnite? Chapters?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the chapter guy. He's oversees all that stuff. So,
cool.
Thanks for tuning in for this episode of Gaming in the Gospel as we talk about the edge and the void. Hope these questions have been helpful to you. And and also if it sounds better, it's because we're at Radical Studios with my friend Will Oliver. Details in the description down below. You else you want to add, Dave?
Looking forward to keeping on moving through this book and asking these hard questions.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to check out the book Gaming in the Gospel on Amazon, available on Kindle and audiobook. Gaming in the Gospel is produced by Evan Staley with Staley Media. Audio recorded at Radical Production Studios by Will Oliver. Published by NEBTHOS. Welcome home, travelers.